You know, it's crazy because we really don't get quite a long G Arkveld theme, especially when you consider how much we fight Arkveld in the open world, in the tunnel place, the ice place, the fireplace. Well, I guess we fight Arkveld in the open. Anyway, the Guardian Arkveld theme is incredible, and I do hope that we get to listen to it more because it's really, really, really good. Let's dive in. It's actually pretty pulled back too, which is kind of fascinating, isn't it? It really isn't in your face at all. I'll tell you why when we start. I love the opening of this because it starts two different ways. First of all, you have like a sort of harpsichord. Not quite. We have harpsichord later on, but we do get this like twinkling thing. And to me, this is all about lore. More so than being an actual fight. Like, I think this is like a terrifying, dangerous, brutal fight. Close quarters, really visceral, really intense. But this is really like the first time we actually are thrust upon Arkveld. We finally, after however many hours, come face to face with this being that has been asleep, that has been, locked away, caged up, whatever. This is that first moment where it's suddenly, it's also like it's consuming. It has no need for food. It's just hungry for vengeance, hungry just for the sake of eating, just because it wants to, killing because it can. Like there's a sentience that's starting to come up here with Arkveld, and it's kind of dangerous. This is a big moment for us in the story, especially, and there's a real brutality in that, isn't there? So you hear a little bit of the synthetic thing because of the whole like guardians, ancestor. So you get that kind of quality of being distant and also being old and also being manufactured, which is where you get the synthetic element, which is really cool. The heartbeat in here is fun. It's a little out of sync, makes you uncomfortable ever so slightly. So all of this, the first minute, is all build up. You get a little bit of the melody, ba 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 ba. A little bit of Proof of a Hero in there, just the very beginning of it. But more than anything, what you end up getting is this real sense of tension because of how long the build up is. Now we're starting to stack different instruments. We're starting to add layering to it. We're starting to to me, it's like becoming fully aware. Almost like as if Arkveld recognizes us, recognizes its own sentience, recognizes its own consciousness, or we recognize that we have to put this thing down because it's become a real danger to the ecology and it did to the world. You know what I mean? It's not a good thing. I just realized we couldn't possibly have a second Guardian because the egg hatches and then we get lots of Arkvelds. Anyway, yeah, really cool stuff here. The heartbeat is really cool. Even more synthetic here is terrific. So much build up here. Ba-ba-da-dum. Isn't that amazing? So we have the da 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 da. That hasn't changed, but what we're getting now is unison trumpets and trombones. Ba-da-dum. Really accenting, hitting. Ba-da-dum. It's really, really satisfying. That little musical gesture will go such a long way. We don't need like full-blown bombacity when you've got just literally simple. It's so intense, coupled with ba-da-dum, really hits it. Strings are doubling, pulls back. Dun-dun. The heartbeat's constant. Arkveld's awareness of itself, maybe. Beautifully played violin here. The pain in that sound really apparent to me. Yeah, and even in this section, I mean, the way that the violin plays, there's a sense of like, we have a responsibility. We got to put this thing down. It's kind of sad, but it's also kind of scary because like this thing has become completely unhinged. We have no idea what it's going to do next. And so we have two-pronged there. One is Arkveld itself, like having like this, basically this mythological at this point, this ancient thing that like has lost complete control, coupled with our own responsibility of what we have to do in order to protect people and everything I mentioned earlier. So there's maybe a somber quality for like what we as hunters need to do, but it's really more of like, oh shit, this thing is coming at us. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit of fear, which is interesting because we don't necessarily hear that when we think of monster themes. Usually, now we do hear it in like a bit in Sunbreak with some certain pieces, but in this particular case, there's a real like, shoot, this is like kind of a dangerous situation. Oh, nice French horns there. Almost like a roar. That deformity here is really cool. Ba, ba, ba. There's the motif, but rearranged. Ba, ba, ba. This is very slow, very methodical. Da, 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 da. Now the strings are in. That is insanely virtuosic playing there, by the way. That is so incredibly cool. It's such virtuosic playing. The latent tension throughout this entire piece is masterful because it's almost like a horror event. It's a horror monster. It's a horrifying being, right? An uncontrollable monster that's just fueled by hunger without having to nourish itself, without any of the natural human impulses or instincts, like essentially Frankenstein's creation that has somehow emerged from the depths of this, cocoon. And I like that now we get like that doesn't go away. That actually speeds up. What's amazing about the string playing there is that the strings, because of the way that they're like playing the chord, there's an inherent edge of violence in that sound, which is really, really satisfying to listen to. It reminds me a lot of that's Rachmaninoff, Paganini, a theme on Paganini, I think. But what's amazing about that piece is that there's that same what that produces is a feeling of tension and a feeling of fear. It's a dance with the devil. And that's ultimately what I think this whole Arkveld thing is. But it's more of a square off, a face off with the devil, right? Amazing brass in here too. It's worth pointing out too that the big brass there, if you rewind a little bit, that's the hits. And that descent down, bop, yap, bop, yap, bop. That really is like tripping or falling or being caught under being pinned down or getting knocked back as Arkveld. That to me symbolizes Arkveld's like a swing and a miss, or a descent into madness even too, which is really cool. It's a very cerebral theme actually, more to do with the hidden meanings or the subtext of the fight rather than like what Arkveld stands for. Because you know how like in Ray Dow's theme, or like we get like Regality in Jid Dahad's theme, we get kind of like a slow plodding pace, which symbolizes how majestic and how like essentially like a demigod, you know, not literally, but Jindahad has like a certain quality about its sound that is very regal. Arkveld's is really like the situation's terrible, and also like Arkveld has completely lost any sense of like what it means. It doesn't even know what it means to exist. It's really Frankenstein's monster. But if things didn't go well for Frankenstein, do they go well for Frankenstein? But all that to say, like, this is like madness. You know what I mean? Violent madness. Major dissonance in there. Classic. So that whole thing, that's the antagonism between the Hunter and Arkveld. So it's actually really cool. Let's like talk about the differences there musically. You can actually hear them probably, and you've probably already pinpointed it, but let's just go back like a minute really quickly. All right, I'm going to point it out. Bubbling. Repetition. Dissonance right there. Again, horrifying, dangerous, what have you, right? It's all part of the setup. Key change. That is Arkveld. That to me is Arkveld coming across as sort of like desperate. If Arkveld could talk, it's like, I've been trapped in here for years. Let me be free. Don't you understand? Like I need this. Like a desperation to be alive, right? To live. And then the Hunter's response says, no, you can't. I don't want to do this, but I don't have a choice. Listen to how heroic this section is. And it's almost like they come together, where it's like, no, you don't get to have a say for me. Like, I get to choose. And so that's actually a power clash, which is really cool. There's a little bit of a moment where we think it's going to go up, but actually what ends up happening is we go down. And that's like sort of Arkveld's response. Or it's the Hunter being like, I don't want to have to do this, but like, you can't be here. There's a frustration in that sound. It's fascinatingly complex. Like, this is like, you can't be here. Yes, I can, with the lower brass. And this is Power Clash. Power Clash. Power Clash. And then we're back to Arkveld, like, rage, vengeance, anger, you know, power, brutality. Overtaking. There's the motif. The Wilds motif. Yeah, you could say that when the strings come in over top, that the strings are actually the Hunter as well. But it could also just be like even more desperation from Arkveld, if we're giving Arkveld like a full characterization, that Arkveld's like, you don't get to decide whether or not I live or die. Only I do. But then we're like, no. Right. But it's like there's a tormentation, a sense of anger, of frustration. There's rage at having been, you know, locked away or what have you. You know what I mean? Love that big brass. Also love those hits. You really hear the size of Arkveld. Like laterally, Arkveld is a house. Massive, right? With the chains as well, like there's so much, like 20 feet, 30 feet wide, right? That reach is really insane. And just like the ferocity on display is really, really, really intimidating. It's one of the coolest fights in the game and continues to be. Whenever anyone gets the opportunity to fight Arkveld, I feel like even though it's Arkveld or Gore Magala right now, there is that feeling of like, man, Arkveld is like just a brutal beast. Like he's just non-stop. Like he can cart you easily if you're not paying attention. That comes across here. There's a big sense of brass here. Now that exists throughout the entire soundtrack, but definitely in this particular rendition of this theme, you really get the sense that like the brass represents the size, I think, and the hits as well. A lot of offsets there. Some dissonance. Descending into madness again. I love that the trumpet there, that little corner, is almost like the final moment of Arkveld being like, you don't get to have a say in how I get to live. You know what I mean? Again, if it could talk. And we're like, we don't have an option, dude. No one wants this. Certainly, least of all me. But I don't have a choice. You know what I mean? And then here's like, fine. And there's a clash. Yeah, and I think ultimately, really, what this comes down to is the fact that, like, we need Arkveld to be put down, and Arkveld refuses to comply. Arkveld will not go down quietly into that good night, right? There's an inability for Arkveld to understand, or it's at this point it's like beyond primal. It's like pure malignance and danger. And I think that's what makes that theme so amazing, is that it's got like an old quality to it, but more than anything, it really leans into the conflict of existence and what it means to even be alive. And why should we be the ones to tell it what it can and cannot do? And that's incredibly powerful, and it comes across very plainly. There's only really one moment of heroicism. Now, you could say that the inverse of all this, and that it could be the hunter's theme about what the hunter needs to do towards Arkveld, which I could totally see as well. Again, with music interpretation, now obviously we both experience the content and the context if you're watching this, and I certainly have with my 72-ish hours of the game by now. But my interpretation is that of like anger and malice and like bloodlust and berserk mode, essentially, and then inability to control oneself, and then that needs to be taken care of in this particular case to protect itself and others. So it's really, really, really a great theme and very cool. If you like this, there's more Monster Hunter on the channel. There will be more Monster Hunter as releases and updates come out. Thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.